The phone rang once, then twice. On the third ring, Kang Ji-ho picked up, not because he recognized the number but because something in his chest told him to. Ji-ho. One word. That was all. And just like that, 7 years disappeared. He sat up straight in his chair, knocking over the coffee he hadn't touched. His hand tightened around the phone until his knuckles turned white. Amara? A sharp breath on the other end. Then silence. Then the sound of a woman trying very hard not to cry. I need you to listen to me, she whispered. I only have a few minutes. Ji-ho stood up so fast his chair scraped back across the floor. His assistant looked up from across the office. He turned away from her, walking to the window, pressing his forehead against the cold glass. I'm listening, he said quietly. Another pause. I'm getting married today. The words hit him like a fist to the chest. In 90 minutes. He said nothing. Ji-ho. Her voice cracked. If you ever loved me, prove it now. Before we go further, if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications. Stories like this one drop every week and trust me, you don't want to miss a single one. Now let's go back to where this all began. 7 years ago, Seoul didn't know what to do with Amara Osei. She was Nigerian. She was loud when she laughed. She took up space without apologizing for it. And she had absolutely no business being the top student in Professor Choi's economics class. At least, that's what half the class thought. The other half just stared at her and forgot what they were thinking about. Kang Ji-ho was in that second half. He noticed her on the first day. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because when Professor Choi asked a question that made everyone else look at their shoes, she raised her hand and gave an answer that made the professor smile for the first time in what looked like years. Ji-ho had been coming to that class for 2 semesters. He had never seen Professor Choi smile. He didn't introduce himself that day, or the next, or the week after that. He just watched her. The way she argued with ideas like they had personally offended her. The way she ate lunch alone but never looked lonely. The way she wore her natural hair like a crown in a country that had never seen one like it. It was Amara who spoke first. You stare at me every day, she said one afternoon, dropping her tray across from him in the cafeteria without being invited. Either you like me or you think I don't belong here. Which one is it? Ji-ho blinked. Both, he said honestly. She stared at him. Then she laughed, loud, unfiltered, the kind of laugh that made 3 tables turn around. At least you're honest, she said, picking up her chopsticks. I'm Amara. I know, he said. She raised an eyebrow. I'm Ji-ho, he added quickly. I know, she said and smiled into her food. That was the beginning. They became inseparable the way only 2 people who have no business loving each other can, fast, consuming, completely unplanned. He taught her Korean. She taught him how to stop being so careful with his feelings. He brought her home-cooked food when she stayed late in the library. She stayed up with him when his father called with news that was never good. By their 2nd year, everyone on campus knew. By their 3rd year, they had stopped pretending it wasn't serious. I want to meet your parents, Amara said one evening, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. The Han River lit up in front of them. Ji-ho was quiet for a long time. Ji-ho. I heard you. Then say something. He pulled her closer instead of answering. And she let him. But her eyes stayed open, watching the water, already knowing what the silence meant. Kang Ji-ho's father was not a cruel man. He was something worse, a practical one. Kang Dae-won had built his pharmaceutical company from nothing. He had sacrificed 2 marriages, 3 friendships, and most of his health to do it. The company was his real child. Ji-ho was just the person who would inherit it. And inheriting it came with conditions. A foreign wife is a liability, his father said. They were in the family home, Ji-ho standing, his father seated, the power dynamic unchanged since childhood. Especially one from Africa. The board will not respect it. Our partners in Japan will question our stability. This is not about feelings, Ji-ho. This is about legacy. She has a name, Ji-ho said. I know what her name is. That's not the point. Then what is the point? His father looked at him the way he always did when he thought Ji-ho was being deliberately slow. The point is that there is a woman. Park Soo-yeon. Her family owns the 3rd largest hospital group in Korea. A merger between our companies would make us untouchable. Her father has already agreed. Ji-ho stared at him. You already agreed? I agreed to a meeting. The rest is up to you. His father stood. But I want you to think very carefully about what you're choosing between. A feeling, or a future. Ji-ho drove back to campus with his hands so tight on the wheel his arms ached. Amara was in their usual spot in the library when he found her. She looked up when she saw his face. What happened? He sat down across from her. He opened his mouth. He closed it. Jiho. Talk to me. My father wants me to marry someone else. The library was quiet. Somewhere 2 shelves over, someone turned a page. Amara put her pen down slowly. Okay, she said carefully. And what do you want? I want you. Then tell him that. It's not that simple. Why not? Because if I choose you, I lose everything. The company. My inheritance. My father. And if you choose them, she asked quietly, you lose me. He looked at her across the table. Her eyes were steady. Her hands were flat on the desk. She wasn't crying. She was giving him the chance to be the man she believed he was. He didn't take it. I need time, he said. She nodded slowly. Okay. But time for Amara had a limit. 3 weeks later, Jiho still hadn't told his father no. He still went to the dinner with Park Soo-yeon's family. He told himself it meant nothing. He told himself he was just keeping the peace. He told himself Amara would understand. He told himself a lot of things. When Amara found out, not from him but from a photo someone forwarded her of Jiho and Soo-yeon at a restaurant, both their families present, Jiho in a suit she had never seen, she didn't call him. She didn't text. She packed the small box of things she had kept in his apartment, left his spare key on the kitchen counter, and by the time he got home that night, the only proof she had ever been there was the smell of her perfume slowly fading from his pillow. He called 47 times. She answered on the 48th. Amara? Don't, she said. Her voice was calm. Completely, terrifyingly calm. Don't explain. Don't apologize. I just need you to know one thing. What? I loved you completely. There was nothing I was holding back. And you chose a dinner table over me. A breath. I hope the company is worth it, Jiho. She hung up. 3 months later, she went back to Nigeria. He let her go. And for 7 years, Kang Jiho told himself he had made the right decision. If this story is already hitting different, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. It tells me you want more stories like this. Keep watching, it gets so much heavier from here. Lagos had been good to Amara Osei. She had come back broken in the quiet way that doesn't show. The kind of broken that gets up every morning, goes to work, laughs at the right moments, and only falls apart in the shower where nobody can hear. She threw herself into work the way people throw themselves into rivers when they're tired of standing on the bridge. Total. Reckless. Committed. By 28 she had built a consulting firm that worked with 3 of Nigeria's top 10 companies. By 29 she had been featured in 2 business magazines. By 30 she had an office in Victoria Island with floor-to-ceiling windows and a team of 12 people who thought she had never been afraid of anything in her life. She dated. Not seriously, she was honest about that with herself. She dated the way someone eats food they don't really want because hunger is inconvenient. Functionally. Without joy. And then she met Emeka Adeyemi. Emeka was everything a woman was supposed to want. He was tall, handsome, from old Lagos money, the kind of man whose name opened doors before he even knocked. He was generous and patient, and he looked at Amara like she was the most extraordinary thing he had ever seen. He asked her out 4 times before she said yes. He waited 6 months before he told her he loved her. He proposed on a rooftop in Abuja with her mother crying in the corner and her friends screaming, and the ring was perfect, and the speech was perfect, and everything was absolutely perfect. And Amara said yes. Because she was 31. Because Emeka was good. Because her mother's eyes were full of tears. Because she was tired of waiting for something she had buried 7 years ago. Because yes was easier than explaining the things she couldn't explain. The wedding was planned for 14 months. A Lagos wedding, the kind that people talked about for years. 400 guests. 2 venues. A reception that started at noon and would go until the city got tired of celebrating. Everything was set. Everything was ready. And then 3 days before the wedding, Amara's business partner forwarded her an article. Kang Pharmaceuticals acquires Lagos-based Medcore in landmark Africa expansion deal. CEO Kang Jiho to oversee Nigerian operations personally. Amara read the headline 3 times. Then she closed her laptop and sat very still for a very long time. Jiho landed in Lagos on a Thursday. He hadn't known she was there. That's what he told himself on the 14-hour flight. He had known Amara went back to Nigeria, but Lagos had 20 million people. The chances of... His driver picked him up at the airport. 40 minutes later, stuck in Lagos traffic that moved like it had nowhere to be, Jiho looked out the window and saw a billboard. Osei and Partners Consulting. Building African businesses that last. Her face was on it. Bigger than life. Confident and composed in a white blazer, looking at the camera like she had already won whatever argument you were about to start. Jiho stared at the billboard until the traffic moved and it disappeared behind him. He didn't sleep that night. By Friday morning he had found her firm's address without meaning to. By Friday afternoon he had walked past the building twice telling himself he was just getting familiar with the neighborhood. He didn't go in. He flew back to Seoul on Sunday. But he thought about her every day for the next 3 weeks. And when he landed back in Seoul, something had shifted in him. Something old and buried that he hadn't given himself permission to feel in 7 years. He didn't know she was getting married in 6 days. He found out the way people find out things they weren't supposed to know. Accidentally, completely, and at the worst possible moment. A mutual friend from university. A congratulatory post. A photo of Amara in a wedding dress fitting, laughing, the ring on her finger catching the light. Jiho saw it at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. He didn't sleep at all that night. The morning of the wedding, Amara woke up at 5 a.m. Not because her alarm went off. Because something in her chest wouldn't let her sleep. She lay in the darkness of her childhood bedroom. Her mother had insisted she spend the last night at home, and stared at the ceiling and tried to locate the feeling that was supposed to be there. Excitement. Joy. Certainty. She found something else instead. A quiet, persistent ache. The kind that had no name but knew exactly where it lived. She told herself it was nerves. She got up. She sat with her mother and drank tea while the house slowly filled with aunties and makeup artists and bridesmaids who talked loudly about everything. She smiled when she was supposed to smile. She laughed when laughter was required. She was very good at this. By 10 a.m. she was in her dress. It was breathtaking, ivory silk, hand-embroidered, fitted in a way that made her mother cover her mouth and cry. "You look like a queen," her mother whispered. "Thank you, Mama," Amara said. And she meant it. She did. She looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had built herself from nothing, who had survived heartbreak quietly and come out the other side whole and successful and loved. She looked at herself and should have felt like everything was right. Instead she thought about a riverside in Seoul. She thought about a library table. She thought about 47 missed calls she had ignored and one she had answered just to close the door properly. She thought about what it felt like to be loved by someone before she knew love could be taken back. "I need 5 minutes," she told her bridesmaids. "Just 5 minutes alone. Please." They gave her the room. She sat on the edge of the bed in her wedding dress and picked up her phone. She found the number she hadn't deleted in 7 years. She had told herself she kept it as a reminder of what she had survived, of what she would never let happen again. She stared at it for a long time. Then she pressed call. Back in Seoul, Jiho's phone rang on his office desk. He picked it up without thinking. "Amara. I need you to listen to me. I only have a few minutes." "I'm listening. I'm getting married today." Silence. "In 90 minutes. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass of his office window and closed his eyes. "Jiho." Her voice cracked down the middle like something that had been holding for too long. "If you ever loved me, prove it now." He couldn't breathe. "Amara, what are you?" "I don't know why I called." Her voice was breaking and steadying and breaking again. "I don't know what I want you to say. I couldn't stand up in front of 400 people and say those words to someone else without..." She stopped. "Without knowing if you ever think about it. About us. About what you chose." Jiho turned away from the window. His assistant was gone. The office was empty. "I think about it every day," he said. "I thought about it when I landed in Lagos 3 weeks ago and saw your face on a billboard. I thought about it every night I was there. I think about it every single..." "You were in Lagos?" Silence. "Jiho. You were in Lagos and you didn't..." "What would I have said, Amara? You had moved on. You built something incredible. You were..." "I was right there." Her voice broke completely now. "I was right there and you walked past me again. Just like you always did when it mattered." The words landed exactly where they were aimed. "I'm sorry," he said. And he had said it before in his head 10,000 times, but saying it out loud to her voice after 7 years felt like something tearing open. "I'm sorry for the dinner. I'm sorry for the 47 calls I waited too long to make. I'm sorry I let you pack that box and I didn't stop you. I'm sorry for all of it." She was crying now. Quietly, the kind of crying that has practice. "Emeka is a good man," she said finally. "I know. He loves me. I know that too. Then tell me why I'm sitting in my wedding dress calling you." Jiho closed his eyes. "Because you deserve to choose," he said quietly. "Not because your mother is crying. Not because 400 people are waiting. Not because it's the right time or the sensible thing." He paused. "You deserve to choose what you actually want. Silence stretched between them across thousands of miles. And if I choose wrong, she whispered. There's no wrong choice, Amara. There's only yours. Another silence. Longer this time. Then, I have to go. I know. Ji-ho. Go, he said gently. Whatever you decide, I hope you're happy. That's all I ever actually wanted. She hung up. Ji-ho stood alone in his empty office. Then he did something he hadn't done in 7 years. He opened his laptop and searched for the next flight to Lagos. Don't go anywhere, because what happens next at that wedding is something nobody saw coming. But before we get there, drop in the comments, Team Ji-ho or Team Emika? Let me know right now. The church was full by the time Amara walked back into the preparation room. Her chief bridesmaid, Sola, took one look at her face and grabbed both her hands. Amara. Talk to me. I'm fine. Your mascara says otherwise. Amara laughed, short and sharp. Touch it up. We have 20 minutes. Who did you call? Amara looked at her oldest friend. The woman who had held her when she came back from Seoul. Who had sat on the floor with her while she cried with absolutely no sound, like a person whose grief was too big for noise. Nobody, Amara said. Sola looked at her for a long moment. Then she picked up the makeup brush without another word. The music started. Amara's father offered his arm and she took it, and they stood at the back of the church while 400 people rose to their feet and turned to look at her. She saw Emika at the altar. He was crying already. Quietly, the way a strong man cries when he thinks he's allowed. He looked at her like she was everything he had ever prayed for. And she walked toward him. Step by step. The music swelled. And somewhere inside her, something very quietly closed. She reached the altar. Her father placed her hand in Emika's. Emika squeezed it and mouthed, "You're beautiful," and she smiled back at him. The pastor began. Everything was fine. Everything was moving exactly as planned. And then the doors at the back of the church opened. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just opened. The way a door opens when someone who has been running has finally arrived. Amara didn't turn around. But she felt it. The slight shift in the room. The murmur that moved like a wave from the back to the front. Sola, standing to her left, went very still. Emika's eyes moved past Amara's shoulder to the back of the church. Something crossed his face, not anger. Not yet. Confusion first. The pastor paused. Amara closed her eyes. She knew before she turned around. She knew by the feeling in her chest, the one that had been missing all morning, suddenly, completely, unmistakably there. She turned around. Kang Ji-ho stood at the back of the church in a suit that still had the wrinkles of a 14-hour flight. His hair was slightly undone. His eyes found hers across the entire length of the church, across 400 people who had gone completely, breathlessly silent. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just looked at her. As if to say, "You asked me to prove it? I'm here." The silence in the church was the loudest thing Amara had ever heard. Emika's hand tightened around hers. She felt it. She looked back at him, this good, patient, generous man who had loved her without conditions and without games. His eyes were asking a question he already knew the answer to. "Emika," she whispered. "Don't," he said quietly. His voice was steady. "Don't apologize. I can see it. I'm so sorry." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, slowly, with a dignity that broke her heart more than anger would have. "I know," he said. He released her hand gently. "I think I've known for a while." He turned and walked off the altar. The church erupted. Amara stood alone at the altar. 400 people. Flowers everywhere. A dress that had taken 3 months to make. She walked down the aisle, not toward Ji-ho, not yet, but toward the door. She needed air. She needed to think. She needed 30 seconds where nobody was looking at her. She pushed through the side door of the church and stepped into the afternoon sun. He was already there. Of course he was. Ji-ho stood a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, his eyes on her. Looking exactly like a man who had just gotten on a plane without a plan and was now living with the consequences. "You actually came," she said. "You called. I didn't tell you to come. You didn't have to." She stared at him. This man who had broken her heart so thoroughly she had built an entire life on the rubble. This man who had let her go and shown up 7 years too late in a wrinkled suit to the wrong end of her wedding. "I'm angry at you," she said. "I know. I have 400 people in that church. I know that too. You can't just..." She stopped. Her voice was shaking. "You can't just show up, Ji-ho. You don't get to do that. You don't get to let me go and then appear at my wedding like a man who spent 7 years making the wrong choice and finally stopped." He He took one step toward her. Like someone who got on a plane with no plan because the woman he never stopped loving called him and asked him to prove it? She looked at him. I'm not the same person, she said. Neither am I. This is not a story, Jiho. Real life doesn't. Amara. His voice was quiet, completely steady. I'm not here to sweep you off your feet. I'm not here to give you a speech. I'm here because you called me. And I need you to know, whatever you decide right now, I will not disappear again. If you go back in that church, I'll go home. I'll leave you alone. I'll spend the rest of my life respecting your choice. He paused. But if you don't, if I don't, then we figure it out. Together. Like we should have 7 years ago. The afternoon sun sat between them. Somewhere inside the church, she could hear voices, movement, the controlled chaos of 400 people trying to understand what had just happened. Amara looked at this man. She thought about the girl she had been in Seoul, young and certain and completely open. She thought about the woman she had become, harder in the places she needed to be, softer only where she chose to be. She thought about Emika, kind, deserving, owed so much better than this. She thought about the ceiling she had stared at this morning at 5 a.m. looking for a feeling that wasn't there. Then she stopped thinking. And she made her choice. And that is where we leave it today. Because some choices are too sacred to narrate. Some endings belong to the person making them. But here's what I'll tell you, she didn't go back inside that church. What happened after that? Drop part 2 in the comments right now, and if I see enough, I'll continue this story next week. And if you watched this entire video, you already know you need to subscribe. Hit that button. Hit the like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear a story like this today. I'll see you in the next one.